It's been so long that I almost have lost hope.
Months, years, even decades pass.
Oh, I've been chasing a ghost.
No clues, no answers, just the memories of those lost.
I saw him stop, and she turned and was talking to somebody.
He was the last person, except for the killer, to see her alive.
From the murder of an innocent teenager on her way home from school.
One of our forethoughts is always that, well, I wonder if this is Beth Miller.
To a young girl vanishing without a trace.
I don't think there's a day that I don't go home or wake up in the morning and think about this.
Beth Miller, Merilee Burt, William Knoll, John Jacoby, the Bennett family.
Their killers never caught, their stories never complete, their cases unsolved.
There are people out there that know. Somebody has said something to someone.
4 separate cases, many years and many miles apart, all different in their unique way, yet all linked together by a common thread. They remain unsolved to this day.
A spree of what seems like random shootings kills John Jacoby and William Knoll and puts all of northern Colorado on edge.
The rape and murder of a Littleton girl, 15-year-old Merilee Burt. She was walking home from school at the time. Her brother was the last one to see her alive.
The Bennett family in Aurora brutally murdered inside their home. Their family members still holding out hope their killer will be found all these years later.
And a search that has gone on for decades. A young girl disappeared while jogging in Idaho Springs. Still hasn't been found to this day. And that is where we began. In 1983, Beth Miller went for a jog in her hometown of Idaho Springs, hasn't been seen since. It is one of Colorado's most bizarre cases. Over the years, there have been fake confessions, allegations of police incompetence, the involvement of psychics, and many, many theories. But the bottom line is, nobody knows where she is. Beth Miller had just turned 14 when she went jogging down Minor Street in Idaho Springs, August 16, 1983. When she never came home, police started searching, at first focusing on a red pickup truck found at a nearby park. Witnesses had seen a man in a red truck talking to Beth. Turns out it wasn't the right red truck. Hundreds of people joined the search on foot and horseback. Many volunteers worked to provide meals for those combing the surrounding area. Beth's father, Mike, made an emotional plea on TV.
I'd like to ask everybody if they have seen anything anywhere that might help us locate Beth, to please notify your local law enforcement officers. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I would like to find where Beth Miller is at. I'd like to have closure on that case for the family and certainly for the community.
Under Sheriff Bruce Snelling says to this day they still follow leads, but without a sighting or finding a body, it's going to be difficult to solve this case.
Up here in the mountains, people find animal bones. There's occasion where we find human remains, and really one of our forethoughts is always that, well, I wonder if this is Beth Miller.
In the days after Beth disappeared, police were so desperate they were following leads by psychics who thought she was being held against her will nearby. It didn't help. In the case files stored at the CBI, there are hundreds of leads. They include several men arrested for murder or attacks on teens. One of the men's girlfriend told witnesses she helped dispose of Beth's body, but nothing has turned out. In 2007, a grand jury issued a scathing report accusing law enforcement of a clear lack of professionalism in the case.
We are not perfect in what we do, and we still, to this day, make some mistakes, or there's some errors. And they're certainly not done intentionally. They're just errors that occur. And so with that being said, I can just tell you that I think at the time they did the best job they could.
11 years after Beth disappeared, her mother went to court to ask a judge to declare her daughter legally dead.
In your mind and your heart, believe that she is in fact dead?
Yes, I think she is dead.
I can just tell you that really in my heart of hearts, and what I have to believe is that if we just keep after it, eventually we'll find that missing piece of the puzzle that can put the rest of it together for us.
This neighborhood looked a lot different in 1984. The trees weren't planted yet, the vegetation hadn't grown, and at the time, it was considered the far east end of Aurora. One of Colorado's most brutal unsolved crimes happened right here. The Bennett family had just moved into their brand new home in Aurora around Thanksgiving. A quiet cul-de-sac, most homes still empty. Their daughter Melissa about to celebrate her 8th birthday, but never would. On the night of January 16, 1984, a man entered the Bennett's home, fatally stabbed and bludgeoned with a hammer 27-year-old Bruce Bennett, sexually assaulted and bludgeoned his wife Deborah, and sexually assaulted and fatally beat 7-year-old Melissa. The killer also shattered the face of 3-year-old Vanessa Bennett, but she survived.
I mean, that's a shock to your life, because I'm the one that found the kids.
Constance Bennett, Bruce's mother, remembers the house was too quiet, then finding her family brutally murdered inside.
That's the worst moment of my life, so it's just something I certainly can't forget.
To make the case even more complicated, a week prior to the Bennett family murders, DNA evidence would later find the same man murdered 50-year-old Patricia Smith in her Lakewood home with a hammer. The murder weapon never found, but the killer left DNA behind at both crime scenes.
I think this type of case is going to be a forensic breakthrough that's going to resolve the case.
Aurora cold case detective Stephen Connor has been investigating the case for nearly a decade, and recently they had a break.
We had an idea that the suspect was possibly a white male.
Now they know for sure thanks to newly developed technology that uses DNA like a blueprint to make predictions about a person's appearance.
This confirmed that, as well as the hair and eye color.
And this is the snapshot they came up with. The one on the left, what he may have looked like then. The one on the right, what he may look like now.
We're looking at someone that's of Western and Northern European descent, as opposed to, Hispanic male or black male. So it's narrowed the field to that.
Detectives were hoping someone would know who this person is or remember seeing someone that night. But since the composite has been released, every tip has come up empty.
We have received probably, 40, 50 calls on it. We've eliminated suspect through obtaining their DNA.
Detective Connor says this case is like chasing a ghost.
That's what I kind of refer to as. My personal opinion is, based upon the evidence, there's a whole bunch of things that come into play, that the guy is probably deceased.
And says he believes the murders were not a crime of passion, but rather opportunity.
I think it was, I came in there to do something, whether it was to rob the place or kill the family. I will not come in empty-handed.
Even though leads grew cold and storylines faded, detectives continue to work in hopes of bringing justice to the entire Bennett family.
I hope they find out who did that, who murdered my kids for no reason, and that they're punished in some way. It just changes how you feel about everything. So, but a person can't do anything but go on and go by day.
There was no forcible entry to the home. Deborah Bennett's purse was found in the front yard with the contents spilled all over. The knife that was used in the murders was found, but the hammer never was. Detective Connor says that there is new DNA technology out there that he believes will help narrow the field even more.
We didn't even know what crime was. And then all of a sudden, here's this horrible thing, that happens.
Littleton in the 1970s, a time and place where people rarely ever lock their doors at night. But the peace and tranquility is shattered one February day when the naked body of a teenage girl is found in a creek. 47 years later, the memory of her death still haunts her family members.
There's somebody out there that knows something.
Who still hold out hope her killer will someday be found.
It was a crime that shook the Littleton community to its core back in 1970. The daughter of a successful car dealer disappeared while walking home from school down this street.
Her body found in a creek the next day, 15 miles from here where she disappeared. The hunt for her killer still continues to this day, 47 years later. Taronda Thomas has her story.
Oh, she was fabulous.
15 years old and full of life.
We grew up tap dancing together. I mean, we did shows in the old Elitch's Theater when we were little kids.
Merilee Burt was vibrant. She was also trusting enough to get into a van on February 26, 1970, the night Merilee disappeared.
She was expecting her mother to come to pick her up at Goddard School. There was a mix-up in messages, and she ended up walking from Goddard School towards her home.
Still wearing the green cheerleading uniform she'd been in for a basketball game that night, her hair in ponytails, Merilee stopped at a friend's house, then headed off on Middlefield Road toward her home on Wedge Way in Columbine Valley.
This was a country club where people didn't even lock their doors. I mean, it was a different time.
At the same time, her older brother Ramon was driving home from high school. He saw a girl walking by and a truck slowing down near her with a man inside.
Then I looked in my rearview mirror as I was going by. You know, I saw him stop, and she turned and was talking to somebody.
He didn't realize that girl was his sister.
And then I just kept going, and then that's all I ever saw.
When Merilee didn't come home, the family began searching for her.
He was the last person, except for the killer, to see her alive.
Both she and the stranger in the truck were gone. Merilee's body was found the next day, less than 15 miles away, under a bridge in Deer Creek Canyon.
Everybody was just bawling, you know. It was rough.
Merilee had been raped and strangled. The cheerleading uniform she was wearing was similar to this one. Police never found it, or the books or purse she had with her. Merilee was the daughter of one of Colorado's most successful car dealers. Her death sent shockwaves through her tiny community.
We didn't even know what crime was. And then all of a sudden, here's this horrible thing, you know, that happened.
Police found DNA on Merilee's body.
The hope always was that, you know, they could use it to eventually, you know, find somebody that matched that DNA.
But a crime lab analysis still has not come up with a match to anyone in local or federal databases. Her brother still remembers seeing the mysterious man in the truck, but police have never had a suspect.
It had to have been somebody she knew. You know, the theory was always that, you know, she wouldn't have stopped and talked to somebody she didn't know. And she wouldn't have gotten in the car with somebody she didn't know.
Merilee's mother, Sherry, spent decades trying to help find the killer.
You never will be the same, and you never expect to be.
Sherry died in 2013, never knowing who murdered her daughter.
You know, she just was tormented her whole life. I think she's the one who really felt guilty.
Now it's up to the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office and cold case investigator Marvin Brandt to hopefully bring some closure to the Burt family.
I want the family to be satisfied. I want them to know who did this.
Still working to find answers in the death of a vibrant teen 47 years later.
There's somebody out there that knows something.
Ray Burt told investigators the man he saw talking to his sister was a white man, 30 to 40 years old, with dark brown hair, receding hairline, and long square sideburns.
Investigator Brandt says the sheriff's office is still getting tips on Merilee's disappearance. The latest one came in the end of last year.
6 shootings, 2 deaths, 1 summer. Each case appears to be random, each case linked to another.
The task force has received.
But investigators are still trying to find the one piece of evidence that could tie them all together and bring whoever terrorized northern Colorado in the summer of 2015 to justice.
So far, we've been concentrating on cold cases that go back for decades. Now we'd like to focus on one that's a little fresher in the minds of investigators.
It's been almost 2 years since a string of apparently random shootings began in northern Colorado. The first happened April 22nd, 2015. A woman is shot while driving her car on I-25 in Larimer County. A month later, a man is killed while riding his bike in Windsor.
And 2 weeks after that, on June 3rd, a motorcyclist was shot at Denver and East 18th Avenue in Loveland. 12 minutes after he was shot, a man standing on the corner of 1st and St. Louis was also fatally shot.
The rest of the summer is quiet until the night of September 13th, when someone shoots at a hospital and an elementary school in Fort Collins.
Now, all these cases seem pretty random. They really can't find anything to connect them. 2 investigators with the task force that's investigating told us in the first one-on-one interview why this case is so difficult.
4 months.
These shootings took place in the public eye.
Northern Colorado felt a chill.
And really the perpetrator seems to have vanished.
The series of shootings began April 22, 2015, when someone fired through Corey Romero's car window as she tried merging onto I-25 near Fort Collins. The bullet pierced Romero's neck, her life saved by millimeters.
I was shocked, and it took me a while. Sometimes it still doesn't even register that's what happened.
On the morning of May 18th, the shooter's aim was deadly. John Jacoby was gunned down in Windsor. Police believe his case is linked to Romero. Then on June 3rd, 2 more shootings, both in Loveland. One claimed the life of William Cannell. Appearing in both cases, this orange truck.
Task force investigators have been able to develop what they believe to be a depiction of a vehicle of interest based on several interviews and canvasses during this investigation.
In September, there was another set of gunfire, this time in Fort Collins. One incident happened at Banner Health, the other at Cottonwood Elementary School. Larimer County Sheriff's Office Captain Bob Coleman and FBI Supervisory Special Agent Todd Sanstead has spent the last 2 years trying to find the person behind the trigger.
There have been person of interest leads popped up, and to date we have been able to clear all of those persons of interest that came to our attention.
What's making it tough, each shooting is connected to another, but nothing links all of them together.
I've been in Larimer County since 1988, and this is the first time that we've had these characteristics.
Coleman and Sanstead wonder if the answer lies somewhere in Colorado or beyond.
We have been in contact with authorities in Arizona. We've been in contact with authorities in California.
Dead ends are common. The work is exhausting.
I think any frustration that comes about during the course of an investigation like this, it's quickly overwhelmed by the sense that, we have victims out there and we have families.
For now, several agencies are working as a team and hoping someone out there knows something.
That someone out there may have a pretty good piece of information for us and will help us break it wide open.
It can sometimes be a key piece of evidence, a scientific breakthrough, or someone coming forward with information that cracks open a cold case and brings a killer to justice. Coming up, we'll share 3 local stories that were cracked years, even decades later, thanks to hardworking detectives and sometimes luck. Every year, the number of unsolved murders grows, leaving investigators frustrated and families in limbo. But there are success stories. Lots of people remember Allie Bareilles. The dark-eyed 5-year-old disappeared in 1993 while playing in an apartment courtyard. 4 days later, her body was discovered in a duffel bag in Deer Creek Canyon. It's believed she may have suffered a fatal asthma attack after being kidnapped. Investigators quickly focused on a man who lived in a nearby apartment named Nick Stouffer, but never had enough to file charges. 18 years later, new testing led to the discovery of DNA on Allie's clothing, DNA consistent with Stouffer's. By then, he was dead. But Inglewood police declared the case solved and brought some peace to Allie's family. Nanine Grimes was 15 the day someone stabbed her more than 80 times in her Adams County home. That was 1980. Brownlow would claim he was there when Nanine was killed, but blame a mysterious man he couldn't identify. A jury didn't buy it, convicting him of first-degree murder. And then there's the case of Holly Andrews. The 16-year-old disappeared the day after Christmas 1976. The next day, cross-country skiers found her battered body on a lonely road west of Georgetown. She'd been raped and stabbed. For more than 30 years, the investigation went nowhere. Her mother died believing serial killer Henry Lee Lucas had murdered Holly. Lucas confessed, but years later was ruled out as her killer. And then, in 2008, Ricky Lee Harnish had to give a blood sample for a DNA test after a drug conviction, and it matched DNA from Holly's body. Harnish ultimately pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. It was one of the oldest cold cases ever solved in Colorado.
Beth Miller, Bruce, Deborah, and Melissa Bennett.
Merilee Burt, John Jacoby, and William Knoll. All Coloradans whose stories are unfinished.
Law enforcement hopes someone somewhere knows something to help close each one of these open cases one day.
We thank you for joining us tonight as we have highlighted some of Colorado's unsolved cases. If you have a case you'd like us to look into, you can get a hold of us at mornings@9news.com.